Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
What's going on, everybody? The trade is back, the copper trade specifically with Aldo Jordan from the Metals Agency. What's going on, Aldo? You just said some of the funniest shit to me that I've heard all week, and it is only Wednesday, but it's still funny. And please repeat it for our audience. And it has nothing to do with copper, but if you have kids and you have business, you'll appreciate this one.
We were talking about family and kids, and I say it's amazing that my wife tells me that I can manage to move thousands of pounds of copper from the middle of nowhere to Hamburg, Germany safely, but I cannot get my 12-year-old to show up to school on time.
So for those of you who think that all we do is sit around and try and solve scrap problems, you're sadly mistaken. We are trying to solve life problems as well, and I think our problems are probably very similar to a lot of other people's out there across the world, not just the United States or Germany for that matter. We're trying to figure out how to get our kids to school on time sometimes.
Absolutely.
Well, man, you said it best. You know, I picked the days to have these podcasts in the copper market, and what a wild ride this has been since last month, right? And we thought last month we were having this conversation like, oh, you know, copper's up, it's, you know, and then all of a sudden, I mean, January, the roller coaster was in full effect. And it looks like February, nothing's changing. It's the roller coaster is still in full effect. So what do you think, man? What's going on in the world? What's going on out there at the copper market?
I think that a lot of the equity plays that we've been seeing on the stock markets, precious metals, has give copper the sniffles. We continue to see a lot of money pour in and day out very quickly, coming into COMEX and now LME for that matter as well. So we have seen, quite frankly, I mean, to open these 22 trading days, quite really a volatile trading. Just to give you two quick numbers that I saw before I came in, we have had 22 trading days so far as of yesterday. We're split those equally between rising market and down market, like split down the middle. And we have seen a 9.5% change between Tuesday and Friday of last week when the market rise 5% just to come down 4.5% the next day. Jeez. I mean, it's quite frankly unprecedented.
I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of this run up in the copper market that I missed. And I say missed because I sold into it. So I never ever got, you know, like I never got the $6 sale on copper chops, right? Like I was always in the 580s, but you know, every time I thought I sold and I hit a good lick, it went up 10 cents or 20 cents, right? But the other day I woke up and copper was at 650 something for May, right? And so I called my guy that I deal with and I said, price it. and so I finally, at least as of today, I finally caught one. So it took me a while to get there, and I'm not saying I hit the top, but to see 650, like when I open my eyes and I log into my phone to start my morning, and to see 650 whatever copper, my eyes, I thought they were playing tricks on me. But sure as shit, it was there. And when you talk about these 9% swings from 9 and then up 9, down 5, I mean, when you're talking about numbers like $6, I mean, you know, if for those people that have a hard time doing the math, 10% of 6 is 60 cents, right? So when you're talking about 60-cent swings in a day, 50-something cent swings up and then down the other side the next day, man, that's a wild ride. How does a guy even buy scrap in that market? Like, what kind of advice would you give somebody that's trying to buy scrap in that market? Like pick your number and go with it, or what? I mean, what do you even do?
I will buy against my current sales, things that I know that I have for sure, because quite frankly, nobody knows. I mean, you just made a point that you hit a good number one day, but if you just play the odds, 11 rising days, 11 down days, I mean, you could have easily be on the other side of the equation. Uh, for operators that are not hedging, I would say buy against your current sales that you know you have, uh, and let the fall ship where they may. Uh, Quite frankly, we have seen uneven liquidity for consumers coming out of Asia, Europe, and even the United States. And by no means I'm saying that people can play scrap today, but quite frankly, what is being placed is minimal quantities. And when somebody gets a good number out there, that's quite not what I call the market on its entirety. Is more of the kind of one-offs that people are able to do right now.
Yeah, and I say that like that's your say this COMEX sell price minus your spread, right? So we always talk about this like you might have hit, you might your sale price might have been at let's say $6 COMEX, but the spreads have widened out a lot. So
Mhm.
that really only translates to maybe depending on whether it's a number one, number two, or a bright wire or chops. That might translate from anywhere from a 20 to a 60 cent, spread off of that. So that six might be a 580 and or it could be a 540 or a 530, depending on the grade. So, just it is what it is for people that don't understand that piece. And I think most people listen to this podcast do, but if you're new and you don't understand it, that's the number we're talking about. So, my question for you, my next question is, so China kind of used to be the 800-pound gorilla, I guess, if you will, with the copper demand side. Have you seen that? Is that changing? Is Chinese demand, is it coming back? Is it still a large percentage of the actual physical consumption? Because when we're talking about trading, I mean, we're talking about, just people moving paper, but the actual consumer used to be for all intents and purposes 60+% China, correct?
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
that still the case? Like moving into 2026, do you feel is that
No,
changing? Has that changed? And how do you see that looking forward?
it is changing. I mean, two things are changing, right? Their amount of demand overall. Let me rephrase this. China is still going to be a big player consuming stuff that comes out of the United States and globally for copper. That's no question about it. But what was changing and is changing rapidly is the amount of consumption, right? So overall, they're still going to be a big player, but I think that we're seeing significant detriment of the amounts of consumption that they have. China is trying to transition between an industrial-based economy to a consumer-based economy. The consumer side of the economy is never as strong as the United States. We tend to be like 80-20, 80 consumer, 20 other services and industry. China is almost the backward number.
Mhm.
And right now, their economy, quite frankly, on the consumer side, is pretty weak.
Okay.
Um, so I really think that they are consuming significantly less volumes of scrap overall that they had done in the past.
Are they consuming less from the United States or just consuming less from and more picking up that volume from other countries, or is it just consuming less as a whole?
Consuming less as a whole. And two
Okay.
other things, Brad, that are trying to be a factor in China is that China has invested heavily on their own recycling industry.
Yeah.
To try to harness, from all appliances and things like that. That industry is starting to mature. It's not as settled as in the United States, but it's certainly, that. And also, China plays a little bit of more of a long-term game, actually having strategic reserves of metals that until recently the United States didn't do. Uh, so they are very good at capturing and warehousing stockpiles of industrial metals, including copper and precious metals. Those are two things that are essentially helping them out right now, but so they need less of our staff globally overall.
So moving on to like the PGMs, gold, silver, which has really been like all the rage as of late, platinum,
Silver,
palladium,
silver.
rhodium. Do you feel like those markets moving as heavily and as hard and as fast are having any effect on the your base metals? Do you think that's playing into the volatility, or do you think that that's its own separate game and it's its own separate set of traders, investors, or do you think these big commodities trading houses are also like messing with base metals as well and creating the volatility that we're seeing?
No, I think that is all the financial part. I think that is making all this, I call it mush. There is really no reason why silver goes up 40% one day and drops 31% the next day. That is not something that the mining industry or physical traders inclined to do. Keep in mind, I mean, these are mining companies that know that they're going to be into it for 40, 50, 60 years,
Yeah.
okay?
10
Uh,
years just to get the mine open, right? In the United States.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
So, I get a little bit of chuckle when there's some, publications that, oh, they have a labor strike. It's like that has all been penciled in, man. It's like, all of this is really driven by financial players who are trying to go away from the equities market and just try to find precious metal havens, and they come in and out so fast that makes your head spin pretty quickly.
Yeah. Especially if you're a consolidator or a processor or, a small, medium-sized, scrap yard, scrap recycling facility, you're just sitting there trying. I posted something on the other day is like, bear with us while we try and figure out what to even pay for scrap, right? Because it's not like what we're trying to not do is screw the customer, but at the same time, we're not trying to screw ourselves either by overpaying. So it's a very, it's a tricky market. And the reason I bring up the PGMs is because, it does feel like as the traders, people are used to the stock market being, very volatile and moving around. Maybe not 20 to 40% in a day, you know, like that would be a big move on the stock market. I think they have the what the breaks in there where they'll just stop trading at a certain point. But um it does feel like as people move out of the stock market or out of Bitcoin or out of crypto, they're moving into these other markets like the commodities markets, just trying to look for an edge, look for a trade, look for a way to make money, right? So it's definitely wreaking havoc in our industry, trying to keep up. And like you said, these mines, they're 10 years just to even open the doors and dig their first shovel full of dirt. So it's not them trying to really do anything. I truly believe that. But it
No,
does create, some wild shifts for the scrap guys, like when we're trying to figure out what to pay, or what to do. What do you project for the next 3 to 6 months? Are we just in that cycle? Are we in that volatility cycle? Do you see it flattening out? Do you see it staying the same way?
first of all, I wish I knew, but my
Yeah,
to my best guess, I think that we this year is going to be a real bumpy ride. Uh, two things that I see on the horizon that could really give us some headaches when it comes to basic metals is the North America trade agreement is still unsettled for all intents and purposes right now.
great
Uh,
point.
that renewal and conversation is still to come, right? And from a tariff standpoint, I mean, the Supreme Court has a case in front of them to essentially validate the legality of these tariffs that are already in place. If that were to go against the administration, and not to be political, just from the pure tariff implication, I mean, we could see a real change in the market from one day to the other one, just because a lot of people have already priced these tariffs into the equation. And if that were to come out from in one day, brace for a change.
Brace for a change in the downside, do you think? Obviously, because that wipes out the like say on the for aluminum, it wipes out that Midwest premium, or it takes a really big chunk out of it. It takes away the on the copper side. it takes away a big percentage of that premium, whether it's the LME or the COMEX. Do you think is it your opinion that if the tariff goes away or even gets reduced or whatever, that those prices come down quickly?
Well, that's what the logic will tell you, right? That if we
Yeah.
already added 50 cents to the bucket because of tariffs and that comes out, that 50 cents should come off, right?
Yeah.
But the market hasn't behaved like that. That's that's what has made this so odd, right?
Yeah.
Because in prior years, I could tell you, I would look at warehousing inventories to kind of signal what the demand truly was and things like that. And none of that has proven any useful guidance this last year. So we're really not in a territory where linearly speaking, we can say, yeah, those 50 cents is going to come off. It might completely go the other way.
Yeah. So when you look across your customer base, not picking one particular customer out over another, what are some of the biggest challenges you see people fighting out there um, on the copper side? What are they? Is it flow? Are they having trouble getting material in? Are they having
I,
trouble getting material out? Are they having trouble pricing? Like what do you
I
see as the challenges from your customer standpoint?
from the customer standpoint, I see three. One is, the market is by no means is illiquid right now. There's still placement of sales, but I think that what's being placed is very timid volumes overall.
Hmm.
Um, Going into the summer months, once all these weather-related events go into the spring, that's a little concerning because the market is signaling that the demand overall, the actual demand is quite weak. Um,
The domestic or the export or
I
both?
think that I think that both
Okay.
actually. I think that China, Europe, and the US are somewhat in similar boats where they're seeing their book of business on the sales side not be as strong as they would like. And I think that less in the United States, I would say China second and Europe third, in Europe being the worst right now, just because they're having a much larger challenge economically than the US and China. The other thing is that we're starting to see is a lot of issues with credit lines. Uh, the market rise a full dollar from the average of 25 to 26. So that means that load of scrap now costs $40,000 more to insure, to manage, to book, and the credit lines are not increasing. And it's not going to be long before the credit insurance houses starts looking at the sector and saying, you know what, there's too much exposure here. We're going to start cutting credit lines, and that is going to be real, real a real issue for people that trade large amount of copper.
Yeah. I think it makes the bigger guys it gives them a little bit more strength because they can weather those storms and they can kind of determine the pricing a little bit more aggressively on their end because
Yeah,
obviously the more people you have at the auction, the higher the pricing usually is because it's more people that want that material.
and,
Speaking
and
of insurance and I want to go back and revisit what you're saying because I think it's important, but it's a conversation that I had with my the guy that handles all of our insurance, and I said something to be aware of, and you brought it up, and I hadn't really thought about it, but it's a conversation that we just had at the end of the week last week, and I said, hey, make sure our cargo liability insurance on the material that we're shipping matches the value of the loads going out because what used to be a $50,000 load of aluminum is now $100,000 load of aluminum, right? What used to be a $200,000 load of copper, or 250, is now a $400,000 load of copper. And so for us, and I say that because we're shipping, almost 70,000 pounds at a crack, because in Idaho we can go heavier. But
mhm.
the reason I bring that up is you need to make sure with internally that you're checking with your insurance carriers if you're shipping on outside carriers or if you're shipping on your own carrier, your own trucks, make sure your liability is at a level your that matches the value of your material load, right? So whether it's stolen, which that's a whole nother segment, or whether the material is wrecked. And I bring this up because copper chops, if you wreck a truckload of copper chops, it's going on the ground. You're not cleaning that up. It's not picking up a bale and putting it back on a truck. Like it's spread all over Timbuktu, right? For us. So make sure that that you're insured correctly on what you're shipping. It's the value of last year or the year before has significantly changed. So if you do get lucky enough to find someone to buy your material and find a place for it, make sure that you're insured correctly for all the things that could go wrong, because it's a big cash flow hit if it does go wrong for you.
Talking about cash flow hit, one thing that we need to watch for, and I'm certainly not wishing or forecasting the demise of all copper traders, especially on the brokering side, but you will see less participation of those brokers just because from a financial standpoint, quite frankly, making any money on copper has gotten extremely difficult. And the more cash outlay that these people have to make, I mean, the less availability to go around it is. So
Or
I
the
think
bigger
that
spreads that they will want to make, right?
the bigger price that you want to make. But there comes a point where even big trading houses are saying, you know what, from a liability standpoint, we would rather buy 2 loads, 3 loads of aluminum instead of 1 load of copper, where we're trying to squeeze X margin, which is getting exponentially more difficult to do.
Yeah.
And we've seen this through the years, right? We saw it when copper hit $3. We saw it when copper hit $4 and $5. But definitely the pull starts getting a bit more reduced in the numbers and the numbers of transactions themselves.
So two things to that. One, you want to be very careful who you're selling to right now. Make sure they have the ability to pay their bill, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that's what you're alluding to, but also just there may be less people even wanting to buy it, right? So the people that do want to, make sure they're vetted properly, very carefully. Make sure you are very comfortable with where your material is going. What looks like usually too good to be true of a price, I will say it, again, it's probably too good to be true, right? In one way or the other. So be very, very, very cautious out there. When copper starts trading like silver, like silver used to, I should say, then you got to
Yeah,
start really, you got to really start, paying attention to your values. But if you bring up I mean, that's a great point, and I think it's a good thing to remind the listeners out there is that, hey, um, material is still getting harder to sell, right? Or is it do you think, I mean, let me go back a few steps. Is it getting harder to sell in the future when the weather breaks and there's more availability? Or do you think that the flow is just kind of muted a little bit and that's helping drive pricing because there just isn't nearly the physical volume of material out there? Or do you think people are literally sitting on a lot of material that they haven't been able to move or they can't find homes for?
my take is that people are now sitting in big stockpiles of copper waiting for the magical $7 to appear. I
Hmm.
think that there is less volume to go around. We are at the very beginning and at the very end of a loop, right? In the industrial loop. So the more stuff the economy sell, the more stuff we see in the yards, and that has been trending down for the last couple of years overall.
Yeah.
So there's less stuff to go around. And with the exception of a couple of people out there that don't have a pile, I think that overall the market is just trying to find as much liquidity as it can as quickly as they can.
Okay. So you feel like the supply demand is fairly in balance. The pricing swings are just driven by traders.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna do it this month. I'm gonna write a LinkedIn op-ed because Dr. Copper has stopped representing the interests of these scrap people, quite frankly, and I don't know where else do we go. I
Yeah.
really don't know. Significantly more of the volume of trade is being done by the financial players. But what we're seeing also now is these real big swings on 1, 2, 3, 4 days. Um, we seldomly saw these cluster as often in prior months, and my sense is that more and more Dr. Copper has stopped representing what we actually do.
I can see the headline now. Dr. Copper is even ill himself. The Dr.
Senor,
Copper has fallen
Senor,
ill.
Senor Copper got the flu.
Yeah. He had a long night the night before. The
Yeah.
brown bottle flu. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. If you got materials, you got copper out there, you're looking for a home, you're looking for advice, don't hesitate to reach out to Aldo and his company, the Metals Agency, and for advice, for help, for even the opportunity for him to help you move your material. Thank you again, sir. As always, I appreciate you taking the time, giving us your insight, and I look forward to continuing this trend. Once a month, we'll tell you what's going on. We'll give you our insight, and good luck. Get your kids to school on time, damn it.
Yes.